Okay, today we're going to be talking about morphological patterning. So these are the features that we're going to be talking about today. So they are neologisms, blends, borrowing, initialism, acronym, shortening, colonization, compounding, contraction, archaism, conversion, collocation, and reduplication. So some of these terms you will have already studied last year. We'll just go over them quickly, and some of them will be completely new to you. Okay, neologisms are just new words. So we did talk about this last year in Unit 2. All words were neologisms at some point, although as soon as they are codified, meaning they are considered to be standard, they're in the dictionary, they're in grammar resources, they are no longer neologisms. For example, noob is an example of a neologism that's it's fairly outdated now. It's hard to find examples of neologisms as they sort of come up because they're not codified. You can't really research them. They just exist in conversations and discussions on the internet and that kind of thing. So keep an eye out for neologisms. Blends are when two words are mixed together to create a new word that has a meaning separate to each of the individual words. So again, we did study this last year. So for example, man and explain has been, they've both been combined together. They've been turned into mansplain. Blend is different from compounding in the sense that it's not two words in their entirety put together, like in cupboard, for example. But there is an element of blending, of mixing up between the two. So we can see in this example that it's not man-explain, okay? It's not been compounded, it's mansplain. So it's been blended together to create a new word. Borrowing occurs when we take words from other languages and incorporate them into English. So for example, izakaya, which is a Japanese word, and affogato, which is from Italian. Initialisms are created when the first letter of a set of words are used to represent that set of words. The letters must be pronounced individually in order to create an initialism. So for example, LHS, CSIRO, BTW are all examples of initialisms because those letters stand for other words which create phrases. Acronyms, on the other hand, very, very similar, exactly the same. In fact, it's just about the pronunciation. So if you pronounce it as a word, you don't say each individual letter, it's an acronym. So for example, LOL, NASA. We pronounce them as words, so they're acronyms, not initialisms. Shortenings are when part of the word is cut off. So usually this happens in informal text. So it could be speech, could be written text as well. So some of them are quite codified, like laboratory to lab and mathematics to maths, telephone to phone. All of those are pretty standard, but we also see quite a lot of shortenings in everyday slang and everyday conversation too. Colonization occurs when the brand name for a thing, so a proper noun, becomes the common noun used to describe all versions of that thing, even when it's not the original brand. So for example, you have Kleenex for tissue. That one's not quite so commonly used in Australia. I think that's quite big in America. Hills Hoist for washing line, Velcro for Velcro. So that has become Velcro, the brand, has become so synonymous with the object to us that I don't even know what I would call it without calling it Velcro. Compounding is the process of taking two individual words and meshing them together into one word to create a new word for something. So again, we did briefly touch on this before when we talked about blending. So it's putting two words together to create a new word, but you don't change either of the words. So black and board to blackboard, bench and top to bench top, and so on. Contractions, we all know what contractions are, I would say. They occur when writers or speakers remove part of the middle of the word or kind of a set phrase. So cannot goes to can't, will not goes to won't, of the clock goes to a clock. So there's heaps of different ones. It's not just the obvious ones that you think of. Make sure you keep an eye out for those. So It can depend on the text whether these are relevant or not to discuss, because obviously they do exist in quite a range of texts. Even quite formal texts can include contractions, particularly if they're spoken. Archaisms are words that are no longer in everyday use. They're usually encountered in fantasy, history, poetry, science, geography, literature, and ritual texts like prayers and in law. So they include old versions of pronouns like thee, thine, and thou. Wireless when talking about radio, for example, and old names of places like Saigon instead of Ho Chi Minh. Conversion is the process of changing the use of a word from its original word class to another word class without adding or removing any parts of the word. So we're not adding or removing any morphemes in conversion. So email originally was just an email. You send an email. Now you can email someone. So it's gone from just being a noun to being a noun and a verb. Green can be used as obviously an adjective, so the green chair, okay, but we can also have it used as a noun, so the green, so I guess you could use it as like a lawn green, but we're more talking about like the greens as in the party. And we have clean, which is an adjective, so the clean table, and now it's also a verb, so you can clean something. Collocations occur when a set of words appear together with a greater frequency than can be attributed to chance. So basically we start to pair words together, and we sort of expect to see those words together. So for example, giving and advice. So giving advice, something that we hear quite a lot. It happens, those words appear together quite often, more often than can just be normal chance. Making dinner, high and quality and low and quality is the same as well. Love and life. So all of these words are words that are often paired together, and they make text easier for people to understand. So because they're phrases that we're used to hearing words that we're used to hearing in conjunction with each other. So they make sense to us nice and quickly. Reduplication is a process in which the root or stem of a word or part of it, or even the whole word, sometimes can be, is repeated exactly or with just slight changes to the morphemes. It's often used to create expressive or figurative language, so it can be quite descriptive when it gets used. So to finish off, what I would like you to do is read through, this is just a screenshot from Wikipedia about all of the different types of reduplication. You don't need to know them all. You don't need to be able to differentiate each one by any means, but it's really interesting to have a read of them, grab some examples, and then you kind of know all of the different types of reduplication that you can look out for in texts as well.